Yeah, but I know a guy who dropped his camera having a coffee before a shoot.
No, that's not the story I was talking about. All right, welcome back to the latest episode of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. I'm with E. This is the podcast for sports videographers. How you doing, E?
Doing good. Yeah, summer is in full form, so making the most of it when it's not raining. How about you?
I've been extremely busy filming like hockey camps lately. I did like 5 straight days in a row of a hockey camp. So it was fun. At least I was indoors. I was out of the heat for a bit. And it kind of gave me the idea for this topic today because I was filming the same thing over and over again. So today we're going to be talking about like how to stay creative when you're shooting the same thing every week. But before we get into that, I have a confession to make, E. And this is something that we talked a little bit offline, off cam, but it's something that I didn't realize that so many people had an issue with. And that is the FX3 audio handle. I only started using it 12 days ago. And on day 12, I broke it.
I've been there.
I put it on a chair. I don't know why. It was early in the morning. I was like, I'm just going to get a coffee. I'm just going to rest this here. And then all of a sudden I heard the bang and it snapped. Now I fixed it with some Gorilla Glue and some duct tape, but I didn't realize that handle was so, I know it's plasticky, but I thought it was a little bit more sturdy because honestly the fall was probably, it's a low chair. It was probably 2.5 feet, 3 feet.
So it takes, no, it's a very fragile piece of, because the plastic is very thin and because I'm looking over there because mine is just there and the audio unit on the top of the handle is it's kind of too big for what's supporting it. So it doesn't take much.
Well, my whole top piece where it holds the mic snapped right off, but it snapped off at like the factory part where they seal it in, like where it kind of snaps together. So it wasn't so bad. But like when you first see your camera on the ground, the first thing I was thinking was, oh my God, I broke the lens. Like that was my main concern. I wasn't really worried about the audio handle. And then when I picked it up and the audio handle was just hanging. And of course, like I'm leaving to go to a shoot and I took the E tactic where like my rig is already ready to go. Like all my other gear's in the car, just my camera. So this way, when I show up to the shoot, my camera's all ready, right? And then I had to run back downstairs, put on my old handle, take off the audio. And then I'm panicking, thinking, do I need, because I knew I was miking up some clients. I'm like, do I need that shotgun mic too? Because I hadn't used the audio handle in a while, right? Because I do a lot of corporate stuff where you just mic up a person. But I forgot how much I love XLR mics. How nice it is to have the 4 channels so you can have the ambient sound and you have them mic'd up. And for some reason, if that mic cuts out, my shotgun mic is picking it up. So once you get used to that, it's really, really hard to go back to the other setup. So yesterday on my shoot without the audio handle, I felt like kind of lost a bit. Like I wasn't as comfortable as I normally would be because I'm so afraid now if I had some audio drop out, I'm going to miss something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And then it's always sometimes because ideally, like you could shotgun everything because with a good shotgun mic, especially XLR ones, your audio is actually better because it's a fuller sound. You get a lot more like range and frequencies and stuff. Where with the lav mics, you don't get as much, but depending on the situation, sometimes you have to, especially if you're not like super close to your subject. But yeah, I always have my shotgun on just in case.
Yeah, it's definitely a game changer because with my A7 IV, I got so used to just like, using the Rode mic on. Sometimes I would take my DJI wireless kit and I'd put one into my Rode mic and then one on the subject. So one channel would be the shotgun, one channel would be the lav. But with this, like last week, I had 2 coaches mic'd up. So that one was audio 1, one was audio 2, and then I had the shotgun audio 3. So it was really nice having those options where all of a sudden one silly mistake when I picked coffee over safety of my camera, boom, that luxury was gone. And those audio handles are not cheap to replace. So I was like, okay, please Gorilla Glue. First thing I did, I tested it even when it was broken. Okay, it's still working. Gorilla Glued it, some duct tape. It's fixed. for now. I'm going to add that we spoke about I have the small rig metal piece for the handle, but I'm going to get the extra piece that goes on top so it doesn't flex anymore. Thanks to your advice. I'll make sure to use your affiliated link to purchase it, my friend.
My gift to you.
Thank you. All right. So enough about me breaking gear and being irresponsible. But honestly, to our listeners, like this stuff happens all the time. And it was just silliness by me rushing and not paying attention. So, just pay attention with your gear, take the time, put it down in a secure place. Two things that I did not do in place of having a coffee when I wanted it. And I literally left on the chair, took 2 steps, turned around, was like, oh, wait. And then boom. And I saw it fall. It was like the worst feeling. I'm too slow and old to dive for that at 6 in the morning. All right. So back to our subject. Okay. So today's idea is, you're working a sport or for a team. You got 14 games, say, for instance, in the same rink or same court. Now is how do you make that interesting? Because getting a paycheck is great, but you do get burnout and you do struggle creatively because you got to constantly reinvent yourself. You got to constantly find ways to make these shots interesting and to kind of, look at every game a little differently. So you have any tips, tricks, or anything you want to add? I know you, as soon as I said paycheck, I saw your eyes light up. You're like, oh yeah, that's why people do the same game every day. Paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. No, I think for me, it's about, forcing yourself to not necessarily be in a uncomfortable position, because you ideally nothing is too uncomfortable, but just forcing yourself to do things differently. So whether it's going for a different music style that you always tend to use, or just different camera angles, or just like different point of view from a storytelling perspective, like just deciding ahead of time to like, all right, this time I'm going to do this thing differently, which is going to have an impact on everything else. And yeah, just taking the time to have these thoughts and then go forward with them.
Like it happens to me at Canadians games, right? Like I film 42 games from the same spot. And I struggle with it sometimes because I have to stay focused. And there are some games that kind of all blur together and you're there and it's kind of reflexes and you're going through the flow. But I do have a couple of cues that kind of keep me focused. So I'm lucky in hockey. We have commercial breaks. So first whistle under 14, first whistle under 10, first whistle under 6. I use that time to kind of reset mentally. I'll put my camera down unless I need it for like a fan activation or something, but I'll rest my camera down and I kind of just take in the ambience, and then I'll look at what's going to happen, and then I refocus, and I know I'm focused for the next 6 minutes. And then at that whistle, I could kind of rest a bit because it is hard to stay focused, and you don't want to miss things, especially like I'm doing for broadcast. So I'm not supposed to miss things. It does happen occasionally. It's rare because I have a great angle. So, I mean, everything does eventually happen in front of me. So it's kind of like dummy proof. But when things are further out or hits or penalties, I'm required to get those too. So I really, really try to stay focused, and I give myself tricks. Like I'll watch especially in the NHL, right? Players, when the top players are on, they're getting the puck. When the enforcers are on, you always got to keep an eye out for them in case there's going to be a fight. So you have to know who's on the ice, but these are little triggers that keep me focused, because it is tough, especially after 42 games for sure.
But if you're filming more like from a, like ENG, more like for social media content, for example, what are the things that you would do differently to try to spark up your creativity? What I like, I'm feeling like specifically when filming.
So I'm going to try to set up my shots. I'm going to look around the league, get some inspiration from other teams or things that I've seen online. And then I'm going to try and make those shots happen. Like I remember doing ENG a couple of games. I usually do it in the preseason sometimes just for fun. And one shot that we always wanted, and it's something that we never really did at first was getting people coming to the game, building up the atmosphere. So I set up, I remember setting up shots where I was getting, at the time, we still had tickets. Now it's all through your phone, but getting them close-ups of scanning tickets. And I'd be like, I got a far shot, a medium shot, and a close-up, So I would write myself a shot list, and then I would follow that step. Okay. Close-up, medium shot, long shot. And I would do that for everyone and really take my time to set them up. So like the beginning of the game, doors open at 5:30, puck drops at 7:05, say. Well, I stayed there from like 5:30 till almost 7, because you realize at 5:30 it's really quiet. So that's when I would get my really tight close-up shot. But at 6:45 it was packed. So that's when you want to try and get that shot where the most people are walking in, because a lot of people show up last minute. And when you work for a team, you have the time to try to get these shots and stage these shots. I would also ask fans sometimes, like, hey, do you mind walking into my camera? And they'd be like, why? And that way I can use it as a cutaway shot where I have a guy all excited with his jersey and his CH comes into the camera. And then when he walks past, it's an easy, simple transition. But try and set up those creative shots when you have the time pre-game and that. And honestly, a shot list, I still use today. Like I filmed that hockey camp last week. I put in my iPhone notes of shots that I thought about before the camp that I want to go and get. And I had a game plan for day one, because the way I ran the hockey camp, which, 5 days is long, day 1 and 2, I got all my highlights, close-ups, slow motions, all that stuff. Day 3 and 4, I did mic ups. I mic'd up kids, I mic'd up coaches. I got all the talking stuff, because I already knew whatever they talk about, I already have all the B-roll for. Sometimes I do the opposite, but like I have to do like day recaps every day of the camp. So I needed to actually film highlights and drills and stuff like that. What about you? I mean, when you did ENG quite a bit for us. So when you were doing ENG for a team, what were you looking for, or what was helping you stay creative in those moments?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever done it for the Canadians, but
no. But I mean, in your other, when
filmed,
you're doing
yeah, as a videographer, I've done it for multiple clubs, but yeah, I just like it because it depends. Because sometimes you're kind of forced into doing the same thing over and over, because there are a lot of expectations of like, all right, you gotta be at this time over there capturing. For example, when doors open, you have to be outside and capturing the crowd going in, and then sort of at the gates and things like that. And then when there's warm up, you need to be there and shoot like warm up, and like maybe some player interaction with kids, like giving them pucks, or when they for other sports, just when they come in or come out, like high-fiving, things like that. And then in the game, there's other expectations, like you're usually requested to be at this spot at this time and film this thing. So sometimes it's, how do I do this without getting the exact same shots every single time? So at that point, it becomes a lot about camera angles and also, well, camera angles, yeah, definitely. But I mean, like, it's not just like, oh yeah, I filmed them from the back this time, I'm gonna go a bit more to the side or whatever. It's also about trying to create something where maybe you're filming it from the perspective of a fan, so you're getting some type of interaction that might be staged, a bit like what you were talking about with people walking towards the camera, like just trying to make it a bit more organized so that you can create some kind of cool shot some type of way, depending on what's going on. But like, for example, the crowd coming in, maybe I'm doing like first person point of view, where I'm asking the usher to act as if I was, someone getting in and just sort of greeting me or whatever, like letting me like fake scan in, things like that. So it's about trying to make the most of a situation by doing it differently than you always does, and that you always do. Sorry, and yeah, just go from there and just take a minute to think about it, and how can I repeat the same thing but differently.
You know what else helps too is changing your lens. If you're using the same lens all the time, then you're going to get the same shots, you know. But if you're in the same, say, sometimes you get a position, you're dedicated to certain positions in a game, right? Because there's only so much room. Change your lens, and like, you know, you have a new wide angle lens we talked about on the show. Well, it's a lot different if you shoot with a wide angle lens and then you shoot with a 28 to 75 or a 70 to 200. So that's your opportunity to film a game wide, or to film a game close up, or to film that angle with a different lens, because that will definitely change your perspective. And another little tip too is that I would do is I would try to see the edit before I went and filmed, like have an idea of what I want. So having an idea of what shots I want to do in time lapse, say, what shots I'm looking for in slow motion, what kind of feel my edit has. And that really helps you stay creative, and it helps you, you know, capture those shots. So this way you go in with a plan, you're like, okay, you know what? Say for instance, everyone walking in, well, I want a slow motion shot of this. So I'm going to shoot it at 120 frames, you know, because I'm going to eventually need this slow motion shot. And the beauty of it when you're working for a team and you get to be creative is you build a bank. And at the end of the season or the beginning of the next season, you go into your bank and you're like, okay, people walking in, I got slow motion, I got tight, I got long, I got medium. You have all these options. So build off that and know what you have, because the worst thing that you could do is film the same stuff every game, because honestly, you're only going to use that shot, two, 3 shots of that, and that's it. So you're wasting all this time and all this footage on the same thing. So fresh perspectives, challenge yourself.
No, I agree. And yeah, from an editing perspective, like I like music is an obvious and big one. Like it's just, if you're always using like super dramatic music, for example, then you're always editing with that sort of frame of mind where there's just going to be like big moments and then it ramps up. And so if you move on to something a bit more pop or something a bit more classical, like that's always a challenge. There's like literally, well, not always, but like a lot of the time in the classical stuff, like it's, you know, I'm thinking like violins and stuff, like there won't be a lot of beats. So you have to create those moments, those big hard hitting moments, without necessarily like a big beat drop or something to make it happen. So it forces you to make it happen a different way and build it up a different way. So yeah, just changing music styles, not just different music track that I've never used before, but like a completely different style forces you to think differently and edit differently. So that's definitely a big one. But also like sometimes, because again, a lot of the stuff is like you're stuck, like, and we're talking if you're working for the same team on a regular basis, like a lot of this stuff comes from the idea that like they want something done a certain way and you've always done it that way. Like for example, a game recap for a lot of people is just this chronological thing where, you know, door opens, warm up, start a game, goals show up in order, and then we celebrate at the end if all goes well. But sometimes you can do it differently than that. You can just keep all your best shots, whether it's crowd shots, goals, whatever, and then just put them in whatever order you want. And the story becomes more the aesthetic of the edit than the story of the game itself. Like I've seen a lot of people do that, where it's just, especially when it's a reel, you know, you get like a crowd shots, you get a goal, then you get people walking in, you get like all these things are out of order, but it's all the best shot from a composition perspective, and it all works together because everything looks good. And then you play with the audio a little bit, a bit of sound design and stuff. And it's a very different way of doing it, but it's still a game recap. At the end of the video, I've seen every highlight. When I say highlight, it's goals, but it's also like just like visually pleasing and big crowd moments and things like that. So there are ways to, yeah, just in the edit, try to figure out how to tell the story differently and also push yourself to do the same thing in a different way. But sometimes it's not just you, it's your manager or people like that you have to convince as well, because they can be stuck in a rut too, where they're like, nah, we're like, this is how we usually do it. And then for them to do it another way just doesn't make sense until they see it and they can actually appreciate it. Sometimes it's hard to convince people to change their habits, especially if it's a creative thing and they're not super creative people to begin with.
I'm glad you brought that up because it's twofold, right? As a videographer, like we start off talking about the camera angles and filming the game and how it gets stale. But post-production gets stale too. And sometimes it's completely out of your control, where an organization, you have a manager and he likes a certain formula and they want that formula all the time. But you get kind of trapped in that formula too, where you're trying to push back and you want to do different stuff because there's different ways to storytell, right? You like some of the simplest things, especially in sports. I have a list right here. You got resilience. You got like rivalry videos. You got some grit videos. You want to show this through, so not every game recap looks the same. But when you're doing 40 to 80 game recaps a season, it's tough, man. It's tough to stay focused, to find music, because music is the number one thing that gets shot down, and you're trying to always scramble and show emotion, show great highlights, story tell. And it's really hard because sometimes you put all this effort into it and you hand it off to a manager and he's like, no. And then you got to start all over. So there's some tricks. And the first thing that I learned working for an organization was learning what people expect of me. Finding out what is it that they like. The people like my first question always was, who's approving this video? Okay, E is approving this video. I know E likes X, Y, Z. I know E likes this song, this song. Yeah, exactly. But I kind of tailor it towards him to get a couple approved. Once he trusts me, once he sees I'm doing a good job, then hopefully I get a little more leeway and I get to start being creative and start pushing the envelope the way that I see it and the way that I feel fit. Now, that's not always the case because sometimes your boss has to answer to somebody else who you don't even realize is approving these videos. So it is very tricky. I'd say the post-production fatigue is very, very real when working the same gig over and over again.
And also like sometimes it's hard to get, like, for example, when I say, oh yeah, let's just go with some classical music, just like violins or just, I don't know, piano or something.
You're a piano guy. I know.
Yeah. I was actually at the jazz festival last week.
Were you?
But
actually, I thought you were really into Wu-Tang lately because you mentioned it in the last 4 episodes. So I figured I'd give you the opportunity to mention it today.
I'm a very eclectic person. I love all kinds of music.
There you go.
Yeah, all that to say that, like, if I was to go to marketing or a manager of some sort and say, oh yeah, I want to do my video. Here's the music track, and it's just violins. Chances are they won't believe in it and they'll shut it down. But if I actually start editing and I put it together like a 40 seconds edited the way I think it could work, they might look at it and like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is different. So sometimes I feel like, the music, like a lot of people say, don't ever start editing before the music's approved, which I totally get. But if you're trying to convince someone to go out of their comfort zone, you don't really have a choice. Like, you have to sell them like visually how this is going to look, because otherwise they won't. If they don't have the tools to understand it, they're going to shut down a bunch of great ideas. And it also comes down to like, don't, I'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask permission. So it's one of those things where if you ask first, you always get told no. So might as well try and then show them, and that way you might get a yes once in a while. But yeah, when you're trying to do things differently and you need people's approval to do it, like it's a very hard thing to pull. So you're better to do it first and then show it to them, and then live with the consequences.
Now, speaking of editing, right? There are a couple tricks that you could do to try and stay creative and not really go out of the realm of what you've been doing, you know, like, so say if there is a formula that works or your team likes, and simple things like unexpected color grades, a couple different transitions, you know, you can go with some vintage LUT, some high contrast, even black and white, just little things that could really, you know, change the mood. And have you ever tried anything where like you tried to shake it up with like a non-hype edit, like say without showing all the highlights, with just showing crowd, showing the backup goalie, stuff like that? Have you ever done a video like that where it's more just crowd noises or whistles instead of the big plays?
Well, the entire video, not really, but I
Parts of
do
it.
like to, yeah, like I was saying to someone recently, like you don't really need to see something to know it happens. Like we put a lot of pressure, especially as sports videographers, to like, oh, I got to capture the goal. I got to capture, this big play that happened and stuff. And you're always following the action because you don't want to miss out on a great goal or great basket or whatever. But the reality is, for example, if I'm shooting basketball from the baseline and someone comes in the corner, takes a three, but I know that the referee is right in front of me, if I pan to catch the ball going in, I'm just gonna film the referee. The shot is ruined. It doesn't mean like this shot is never gonna make it to the video. But if as he's shooting, I stay on him and he makes a three and he goes like this, or whatever reaction he has that's positive, I know he made it. Like I don't need to see the basket. So same thing like with crowd shots and stuff. If, for example, like I think the guy I was talking to was filming baseball. So it's like you don't really have, if you missed the player hitting the ball, does it really matter? Like you can, if you show me someone running the bases and landing on the third, I know he hit a triple. Like it doesn't really matter. It's like in the movies where you see like a guy with a gun going into an alley somewhere with someone else and comes back alone. I don't need to see the shooting. I know what happened. So it's one of those things where it actually tells the story better because there's a bit of anticipation build up and you sort of make the image in your mind of how it actually happened. So using crowd shots instead of the actual action. And when I said crowd shots, I mean like reactions. So like reaction to a touchdown, reaction to a big basket, like using those instead of the actual action, just tells the story just as well, if not better sometimes when it's done the right way. So yeah, from that perspective, I do try to do it more and more. And it is a way to be creative and be different with your edits. And it's also a way to take pressure off and not always feel like you have to be filming every bit of action just in case something nice happens.
And that tees up our little next segment, which is storytelling. Storytelling plays a big part. And when you kind of get stale, it's switching up your storytelling. And you just gave some prime examples of how to switch up your storytelling and use those moments. Because yeah, you don't need to see the guy score the goal, hit the three. You need to see the attempt, and you need to see people's reaction, and you already know. You know, you guide your audience how you want to guide them. So by showing, you know, silent heroes, coaches, even, you know, referees, these are all signs of what's going on in the game. Now, you ever challenge yourself, like try and edit with like no music, just like the crowd noises or no goals or only ambient sounds? You ever try that? Like me personally, I want to, but I find it a lot more work to find the right sound bites to really make it flow. I mean, I haven't needed to do it, but it's always something that I do want to do to challenge myself, because I do enjoy seeing those videos because I find them very, they capture my attention because it's so different than hearing, you know, the most popular song at the moment and that. So I do like that. But was there a song that totally changed an editing piece for you ever? E? Is there something that sticks out in mind?
Well, not necessarily a song, but like, yeah, more going into a style that I've never used before, like I mentioned before. But But yeah, to answer your previous question, I don't think I've ever done like a, well, if we're talking like game recaps, like
Mm-hmm.
specifically, like I don't think I've ever done one without music. But what I do like to do is cut the music. I rarely have music from beginning to end, uh, in all in one block. Like it usually when there's like a big play, especially if I get some cool audio to go with it. Um, I'll sort of cut the music in a way that makes sense, and then it'll be like just pure audio from the game, and maybe as, or for example, there'll be like, expectation, and then you hear like heartbeats, like is he gonna catch the ball? Is he not? It's in slow motion, and then as he catches the ball, boom, the music starts again, like things like that, just to break it up, and also to make that moment even more dynamic and intense. And also, it's a good way to switch music as well. If you've got like a longer video and you want to switch the tempo or just switch the music, just for variety's sake, to try to mix one track into the other is always, it's very hit and miss, and it's more miss than hit, especially for videographers. And I'm not necessarily like into, we're not music producers. So if you actually break it up by like having something that happens, and then there's like a soundbite, someone screaming at the camera, a coach yelling some instructions to the players, just like pure, just like, sound bites, no music, and then boom, you start the second music track. Just having a bit, like a few seconds off, that means you can transition from any style to any other style. Like otherwise, it's a bit trickier to go from one music track to another if you're trying to blend them together somehow.
It's great using sound effects and sound bites to transition to music, because music, especially when you're doing that many recaps or that many videos, it's really hard to find music after a while. Like I feel like you use all these good songs right away, and then all of a sudden halfway through the season, you're struggling and you're looking for other songs. Um, I look for sometimes, like obviously, like nowadays it's a little different. We can use more popular music. When we first started, we had so many things that were blocked. We had to use a lot of generic stuff. I still use like my Motion Array account or Artlist for some edits, but then I want some popular music too, right? One of my little tricks that I do with popular music is I look for like remixes. I look for a lot of remixes, or ones that have been in movies and stuff. Like one comes to mind is the movie The Creator, and they have an Aerosmith song, but they put all this reverb in that works perfect with sports. And then when you put a couple crowd noises or hit noises in it, it really, really comes together nice. So it's to find music that people know, but a different version of it. It really helps your music stand out, and helps your video stand out, because I'm trying to tie this into my next thing is, when you work for a team and you're filming 40 games a year, guess what? You're going to film some boring games. Not every game has highlights. Not every game is exciting. Not every goal is pretty. So that's a challenge, is how do you make a boring game feel like it wasn't boring and it was exciting?
Well, I think that's when the aesthetic side comes into play a bit. Well, it doesn't have to, but like for me, like that's one way to get away with it, is to focus more on like great composition and yeah, slow mo shots, and like you said, playing with the music, maybe like a twist like that where it's a music that we know but edited a certain way or mixed with another track. Like, you get the lyrics from one song and the music from another, and or some type of thing that helps you, just making the video more about aesthetics and composition, and maybe you edit, like especially if it's a vertical, like you have like 3 shots, so they're always sort of changing at random times, and so more putting the focus more on that type of stuff than the game itself, basically.
Because I've had that challenge, or you always want to be positive when you work for a team and your team loses, and you have to still put out, a lot of teams still want you to put out a positive video. And that's, you get into the habit of being able to do it, but your first couple times are so challenging. Because you go to the locker room, say, even if you're looking for sound bites after the game with a player, players don't want to help you at all with anything positive after a loss. They're like reset on to Cincinnati, the
Mm.
famous quote. It's like, we don't want to talk about it. We forget about the loss. So you're pulling at teeth. You're really trying hard to find positive things. And that's where your creativity will stand out the most. Those shots that you have banked of happy fans or of other moments, coaches, refs, all that stuff. That's when you want to use all those shots when you have a loss, a boring game. Try and pull out those creative shots that you already had in your bank. Composition, like you mentioned before, uh, will go a long way. It's going to save you. It's going to save you. So, you're going to have every game, you're going to have the opportunity to film stuff, but you're not going to have the opportunity to use all that stuff. So, highlight those clips, mark those clips, and save them for a rainy day, because that rainy day, it comes faster than you think, and you need all that footage.
And also, like, I think another way to be more creative is just to look at what other people are doing and get inspiration somewhere else, because what is typical for me might be completely different for you, and vice versa. So look at what's out there, and take ideas from what other people are doing and trying to implement them in your videos, and maybe as well like change them a little bit to your style, and go from there.
What's your favorite story angle when working, for a full-time sports team, like in a game recap? Let's just say for a game recap, what would be your favorite story angle? Like, are you looking at just simple highlights? Are you trying to focus on a player? Like, if I say we're halfway through the season, you're a little bored right now, you want to switch things up.
Hmm.
What do you feel like would be a great story angle to share or try to
I don't think I would have necessarily like I think a story angle. It's not necessarily something for me that, because like I'll have one if the game, like I know coming in, like, oh yeah, I'm following a player, or there's a rivalry, or there's this or there's that. But if that's not like that would happen whether I'm looking to be more creative or not. Like, but I think for me it's more like what I'll try to do is more like play with my camera angles, and like you say, like use a different lens, which allows me to create different angles, or play with, I don't know, the fact that if I have a wide lens and I'm shooting at a low frame rate, I'm I'll probably be a lot more stable because I'm super wide, so I can do like some sort of tracking shots even though I'm handheld. Um, or use a gimbal, for example, and then really go crazy with tracking shots, and moving, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just using different equipment and making my shots different than what I typically get. But ultimately, I'm filming the same things. I'm just filming them differently.
So before we wrap this up, okay, you ever go into a shoot planning something creative, or having a game plan, and you get there and everything completely changes on the fly? You have any good examples of that? I have a pretty good one. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, but I know a guy who dropped his camera having a coffee before a shoot.
No, that's not the story I was talking about.
But yeah. Well, yeah. Often, like you think you're gonna have like that, like a certain level of access, and then turns out you don't, or people want to add audio to the mix, and then it changes everything because it just depends on your camera setup. But sometimes that overcomplicates things, especially if you want it to be on a gimbal, for example, and everything's balanced, and now you have to add like an audio unit to this. But yeah, I'm blanking on the specific example, but it's more about, yeah, like for me, what usually changes at the last minute is where I'm going to be able to shoot from. And if I forgot to bring a particular lens, or just like I forgot my monitor, for example, that all obviously that complicates things a little bit. Not that I can't get the same shots, but when you grow comfortable filming with a 7-inch monitor, then and now you're just looking at this small LCD screen, you're not feeling as confident when shooting. And it's not as easy as well if you're holding the camera super high or super low.
That used to be the hardest for scrums. How you would get into a scrum, and sometimes you'd be stuck there holding your camera above your head, and your hands start shaking, and you're trying to just get an opening where you can finally bring it into a comfortable position. I went to a shoot one time with the Habs. I'm on the road with them, and my main objective is to film behind the scenes stuff in between periods of the season opener. The season openers in Toronto. That's my main objective. Behind the scenes, I don't need game footage because we have all the TV game footage and all that. And Toronto's providing other game footage. So I don't have to film any game footage. I'm just filming behind the scenes. So I just have a shotgun mic, and I'm supposed to mic up the coach at the end of the game with a lav. That's my game plan. And by the time the game starts, I'm on the bench with the team, with the camera all the time. And thank God I had a shotgun mic because we used a lot of the audio of the coaches actually talking. And all I can think of the whole time is I should have brought my mics. I should have mic'd them up right away. I could have just turned it on and I would have had all this great audio. My shotgun mic picked up the sound good enough, but I was panicking the whole time because I was so afraid that I'd have to tell them, like, I was actually on the bench and I got zero usable footage. Well, I mean, the footage is usable, but that footage is only good if you have the audio. So thank God it worked out, but that was not part of my plan. I was not supposed to be on the bench. A security guard and the team let me on the bench, but that was not, like, nowadays you'd have to go through so much red tape to be able to be on the bench with the team, especially away, to be able to do that. So I was very, very fortunate that it worked out, but the whole time I was panicking, thinking, here I am, I have this great opportunity, and I'm going to walk away with nothing. But it was good. And because I didn't even have earbuds, I couldn't hear.
Yeah, that's always
the audio
scary
level. So I'm like, oh my God, what's it going to be like?
Yeah, you definitely need to monitor your audio if you're going to record something, that, especially if it's people talking, because otherwise it's a very stressful thing. And sometimes you think everything is going well, and then you listen to it later and realize there was this very distracting background noise that you can't see that on just audio levels.
Exactly. And the plan was so nice. It's like, okay, after the game, the coach goes in his room, they talk, the players are going to dress. I mic him up. I put on my earphones. He comes out, he gives a speech. That's what I'm there for. Nope. The whole plan changed. So, hey, sometimes you go in with an idea and things just, it worked out for the better. It was a great shot. It was a great time. But it was not part of my plan at all. But I mean, the whole point of this episode is, you know what? Yes, there are constraints when you work for a team, but find a way to be creative, find a way to push yourself, find a way to stay engaged, because it is easy to get compliant. It is easy to get, handcuffed into the same edit, the same music style, the same angles.
I agree.
You agree? All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare.